guys, Paul Schreier at JoBlo.com. I am here with the directors of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and we are going to talk all things Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, in case that wasn't clear. So tell me, how did you guys get involved in this project?
Well, start? Sure. Let's see. December 2015, I was at Sony on a different project, and I got introduced to Phil and Chris, and they said, hey, we have this very secret project we're working on. We'd like you to read the treatment, and I read it, and yeah, it's almost 3 years of kind of playing with Spider-Man.
So you guys have like had to keep that secret for a good while, yes. Right? So it was like definitely an under wraps thing, and then this is based. A lot of people don't know or may not know. This is actually based on the comics, at least in part. The Spider-Verse is a real thing in the comics. So
absolutely,
what was the reasoning for pulling that story out of all the stories you could do for a Spider-Man animated film?
Well, you know, a lot of the approach for us was thinking about what would be fresh, what would be new, what seems like a cool, interesting, fruitful, area, and that was something where there's just a lot of really great material that hasn't been out there in any other form, and it just seemed like it would make a great movie, and there's a lot of great characters, and there's just a tremendous amount of stuff there that is very distinct, very unique, and we all felt would make a great movie.
So there's also a ton of characters. This is packed. Again, with the Spider-Verse, you have multiple Spider-Man. You have Peter Parker. This is the first time we're seeing Miles Morales. Can you guys talk about what it was like bringing Miles in his first cinematic endeavor? What it was like bringing him to life for this?
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was. That was pretty much the primary draw of the project to me. I mean, the Spider-Verse is sort of. It's a great idea, and it's an incredible concept. To be able to wrap that around the story of Miles and have the audience discover it with him and tell the story of the Spider-Verse through the eyes of this kid who's going to come to it for the first time, it's kind of what makes the whole thing fit together. And the idea that Miles really was kind of groundbreaking in being the first alternate version of Spider-Man to really sort of hit it big was, I think, kind of just the backbone of this idea that anybody can be behind the mask. There's a whole universe of Spider people, and they all have the same basic core elements that made the original Spider-Man great.
Awesome. So we've seen a lot of stuff in the trailer, but the one thing that sticks out is the style. Coming from somebody that's a fan of animated films, I've never seen anything quite like this. Can you guys talk about how you guys came to the style? Because it feels like a living comic book in many ways. So I'm curious what your approach was and how you guys developed that.
Yeah, that was the goal, was to, for many reasons, but really to honor sort of where Spider-Man and comic books came from, meaning Ditko, early Marvel, but then also New York. And so we were pushing on sort of the ideas of like how comics used to be printed. We were using printing process philosophies to try to create cinematic tools, like camera tools. And then it just felt like the beauty of a comic is that in one panel that you get the most impact you can out of a story point, and that was our aspiration. And also it felt like doing a Spider-Man movie, doing an animated film, like we needed something to make people take a second look at it, and it gave us the freedom to just kind of push the boundaries, and then it was difficult and time consuming, but we, after about a year of sort of banging our head against the wall, we kind of built a new pipeline for ImageWorks, and yeah, it's been pretty successful. It's been pretty well received, I think.
Yeah. So the other thing that we have here, not just with Miles and other Spider-Man, but we also have, looks like a bunch of different villains. Can you guys talk about like what your approach was in like choosing the villains and choosing the bad guys that were going to show up in this film?
Sure. I mean, a lot of it, when you do this kind of thing, a lot of it is thinking about the main character, Miles, and thinking about who, thematically, who, matches up or overlaps with this main character in an interesting way. So, it really starts from that, thinking about the villains as the stars of their own movie with stories that that overlap and parallel the main characters in an interesting way. That's really how we approach it. And then visually, you know, again, like, because a lot of the ethos of this movie from the very beginning, you know, when it started with Phil and Chris, was how do we do this animated movie, this superhero movie, in a way that feels fresh and we'll make it interesting for us, make it interesting for the audience. So the villains were the same thing, you know, where we may be using villains that have been seen before. Our challenge then became, how do we depict this character in a way that hasn't been seen before, visually, narratively, all that stuff.
So Miles Morales originally started in the Ultimate Universe of Marvel. So can you guys talk about the influence of the Ultimate Comics, Bendis' run and stuff like that on those? How much of that was pulled into this story to create the film?
Yeah, you know, Brian Bendis' work is really like the DNA of our movie. I mean, everything, all the major stuff from Bendis's, well, I can't say all the major stuff from his run because he did a lot, but all the major stuff in our movie has its origins in the work that Brian Bendis did. So, of course, we kind of, you know, expand on it and deviate and, you know, do what we have to do to make a movie story work, but I think fans are going to see that there's a lot of care and sort of love that's been put into trying to capture a lot of what Brian Bendis did in the comics.
Awesome. So this is separate from the Spider-Man films in the MCU. But even with that, you guys, is this something that you guys look at and say, okay, this is something we'd like to see more of, or is this approached with more films in mind, or is this something where you're like, well, we'll just see what happens, or is this like, no, let's plan for more and plant some seeds for that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah, that's like I think, you know, this movie is the tiny little seedling for a much larger sort of group of films that are all centered around the Spider-Verse. And what we wanted to do first and foremost was create the origin story for Miles, but also introduce the Spider-Verse, and then see what comes out of it. And even for us, as we're kind of pushing our way through the film, we start to discover strong characters that we didn't realize were going to be so strong, and those, they find a larger role in the film and possibly beyond the film.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, with Spider-Verse, you could spin it off infinitely. Like, there's just...
Well, literally.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, mathematically you could, but you know, all that said, you know, on a day-to-day way, as far as how we make and talk about the movie, it's very focused on this movie. It's very focused on you know, telling a really great, you know, making a really great first movie. And, you know, there's limitless possibilities, and we certainly have talked about, you know, wouldn't it be great, this, that, the other thing, but we sort of leave it there and say basically, let's
eat the food that's on our plate.
You know, but obviously everyone's really excited. You know, it opens up a world of possibilities, and that's exciting, and also, you know, a world of possibilities, a way of approaching a character and a world and material that we haven't seen before, which gets all of us excited.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate your time. Movie looks awesome.
Thank you.
Genuinely, like, I'm pumped for it.
Good.
As a fan, like, it looks awesome.
Keeps us going, man.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. So, congrats, guys.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Miles!
Yeah.
Gotta go!
If you want me to drive you, we gotta go now.
No, Dad, I'll walk.
Personal chauffeur going once.
It's okay.
Seriously, Dad, walking would have been fine.
Breaking news, Spider-Man saves the day again.
Spider-Man. This guy swings in once a day, zip, zap, zop, and answers the phone.
Dad,
Accountability.
speed up. I
You
know
with
these
great
kids.
ability.
Miles, man, you get arrested?
Gosh, don't cops run red lights?
Well, yeah, some do. But, not your dad.
In your universe, there's only one Spider-Man. But there is another universe. It looks and sounds like yours, but it's not. My name's Miles Morales.
Hey, kid. You're like me. How?
I knew my day would come around this time.
I know it's complicated.
Just had to get my soul and free my mind.
You want to know what happened to you? I can teach you to be Spider-Man. I love this burger. So delicious. One of the best burgers I've ever had. You have money, right? I'm not very liquid right now.
I think you're gonna be a bad teacher. How am I supposed to save the whole world?
You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person. One thing I know for sure, don't do it like me. Do it like you.
Brooklyn! Stop us now. Hey, I'm all in, I'm all in. I ain't worried about a loss or a new friend. Never worried about a fraud or a new bitch. Lost love, I ain't worried about a process.
I see this spark in you. It's amazing. Hands up! Whatever you choose to do with it, you'll be great. I love you, Miles.
Yeah, I know that.
You gotta say I love you back.
Dad, are you serious?
I want to hear it.
You want to hear me say it?
I love you, Dad.
You're dropping me off out of school?
I love you, Dad.
Look at this place.
Dad, I love you.
Dad, I love you.
That's a copy.
Time to swing, just like I taught you.
When did you teach me that?
I didn't. It's a little joke for team building.
Hey, guys.
Okay, who are you?
I'm Gwen Stacy.
Come on.
How many more spider people are there?
Save it for Comic-Con.
What's Comic-Con?
Let's go!